Hello, and welcome to the second one of these. I actually have tried to record this once before, but I was feeling the pressure. There's still people on that channel. That's crazy. Yeah, the response to the video has been overwhelming. I know it's got like 100 views or something, but I had a bunch of people in my life reach out to me. I saw a bunch of people in my life in the comments, and that was cool. That was, it made me feel grateful. I was incredibly grateful for people still being interested in this channel that I started when I was like 14, and sort of encouraging and interested in what I might have to say. I found it incredibly difficult to post the first video, which I thought was interesting because no one cares about this channel. Or I guess only I care as much as I do about the channel. I found it really hard to post anything on KhanStopMe for many, many years. And I thought I would just go into why. I felt physically sick hitting the upload button on the last video. And the reason, part of it is just, it's been so long, and part of it is just the fact that there's some level of perfectionism that's really inhibiting my ability to post things that don't feel polished. But I think part of it was what Can't Stop Me as a channel means to me. It was the first YouTube channel that I made that got any significant traction. I had a couple of other channels before that that did well in certain regards. I had a gaming channel where I posted like clips of Halo videos, and I had a dance channel that actually did pretty well because I was using popular songs. But this was the first channel that really sort of kicked off a career in creativity for me. And every time I would show up to this channel, Can't Stop Me, I always brought my A game. I always made something that I felt was the best that I could make. And to post something on here that wasn't the best that I could make at the time felt like a real betrayal to the spirit of Can't Stop Me. In a way, it was like my alter ego, Can't Stop Me, was supposed to be sort of like firing on all cylinders and making something that felt creatively at my, the most creative thing I could make and the most interesting thing I could make. And that became its own prison. So breaking that is interesting, and I'm glad I have. And I think this is a cool weird thing to do. It's strange to have a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers, and the most nervous I feel is posting on a channel with a fraction of that and getting like 100 views on every video. On every video, I've made one video, but I think it just shows that I care, and I owe a lot to this channel. I sort of owe my whole life and my whole career to this channel. So it feels like a lot to come back and sort of make stuff here. It all started here, and so it's strange to be back. And another reason that I thought it would be difficult to come back, or another reason why I think it's difficult to come back, is the idea that has sort of plagued my entire career of being online, which is sort of commodifying personhood. So I've been thinking a lot about this today because yesterday's video was a real internal look at myself, and an explanation to myself on why I was doing this. And there was one thing to make that video, and I didn't know I was going to post it anywhere until the end of the video, where I literally have the realization, like, maybe I could post it on KhanStopMe. And so it was a real introspection that didn't feel like it was going to go anywhere. Whereas posting it and knowing the second video will also be posted there feels more like I'm creating some sort of product. And this is something that I've been really self-conscious of, maybe my entire social media existence. And the divide that I've always had in some ways is that commodifying my personhood is okay if the thing that I'm commodifying are ideas that are created by me. They feel like creative acts, and creativity is something that I'm happy to share with others. Whereas my personal life doesn't. That feels like a barrier that I shouldn't cross, because once you start to try and find areas of your personal life to commodify and sort of like share for entertainment, that feels fraught with difficulty. And that's sort of like this clean line, this story I used to tell myself, and still kind of do tell myself, that this clean line is something that I think is like a good ethical place to draw a line. But I don't think this line really exists anymore. And I don't mean anymore in this like these days, social media means everything is commodified, blah, 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 blah. I think the act of being creative is inherently personal. Some of the greatest works of art are personal reflections on who people are, and those have manifested into albums and movies and YouTube videos. I think that these things are reflections on who you are and your personhood, and I think that sharing your personal life is the thing that I've been sort of like uncomfortable with, but ultimately, I think that's just because of the way that people sometimes share their personal life in ways that feel sort of like imbalanced on social media. But like Lost in Translation, for example, is like about a relationship. Adele's entire career is about relationships. You know what I mean? Like these are like, I mean, I know I've just given two examples that are about relationships, but like people put their lives into their creativity, and this idea that like commodifying your personhood is like inherently bad, I think is an idea that has made me hesitant to really share myself on the internet. And I think this is a path that I've always seen my peers and people I know go down, and I've always been pretty much in awe of that, maybe secretly, or it's just interesting that they can be brave enough to post or share through art, or just through social media, parts of themselves for people to look at, and judge and experience. But I think this is a real point. This is where sort of like connection happens. I can't remember. My friend was telling me literally this morning. There's a Bong Joon-ho quote about this.
When I was young and studying cinema, there was a saying that I carved deep into my heart, which is the most personal is the most creative.
그 말은 that quote was from our great Martin Scorsese. So
ultimately, it was about vulnerability being appealing in storytelling, and I think that's important. I think that I've had this sort of like unease around thinking about creativity and sharing creativity as this sort of like sharing creativity as this line between commodification of your personhood and like not that. But I think this frame is not really helpful for me. That's not to say that I'm still the like, parasocial relationships a dangerous guy. That's not changed. But I understand that sharing yourself through art doesn't necessarily inherently become a parasocial relationship. I think there is more nuance to that. And that's sort of like the thoughts that came to me after posting the video, because I think this video is being made intentionally, knowing where it's going to go, where it's going to live. It's going to live on the YouTube channel. Whereas the first video had no purpose, had no point. I was just talking to the camera for no reason. I do suspect that people will not watch this video as much as they watched the first one. And that's not to say the first one went viral. It's just that, like, I'm going to do this every day to varying degrees of quality. And I think the novelty will wear off. And so I will ultimately be speaking to nobody, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, those are my thoughts for today. And yeah.